Let's hear it for Kiss drummer Eric Singer!
All right, little fighter. How's everybody doing? You guys hanging in there today, huh? I know these can make for long days. There you go. These makes for long days sometimes. Who's got a microphone?
Got one right here.
Where?
Right here. I got one, Eric. What's your favorite scent?
My favorite scent. Your wife. That's pretty quick on my feet, I gotta admit. Even I like that one.
$15 the baby shirt, so I need $15.
Don't get me going, because I'm quick.
I know you're quick.
But
You coming over, James? You got a question? Okay, they're all scared now.
Okay, I won't talk about your wife. Just his.
Out of all the albums that Kiss has done, which one is your favorite?
What's my favorite Kiss album? I mean, of all the Kiss albums, or one that I played on? I like Dressed to Kill or Hotter Than Hell. Any of the first three are my favorites, actually. The first three, and including a live one, because that's obviously the culmination of the three. But of the records I played on, then I like Revenge.
I guess I have the floor. We had a lot of people write down questions. I guess they were nervous about coming up and talking in the mic.
Really?
Yeah, so.
I can't imagine why.
This one just says, my question, new album.
Yeah, well,
I guess that's been addressed.
Yeah, I think that was covered before I heard Keith
so.
talking about it, so we kind of know what that status is.
Okay.
Never say never, but I don't see it. It's not planned in the foreseeable future.
Do you catch a lot of hell for becoming the Catman? And what would you rather be if not?
Do I catch a lot of? Well, yeah, some people. But I've realized with all things in life, you can't make everybody happy, and if you're going to spend your life trying to do that, you're going to be very disappointed. But also, I just look at the reality of not just this band, but a lot of bands. Most bands that have been around for 30 plus years or 25 plus years all have different members that are not the original lineups anymore. Whether it's Foreigner, Journey, Styx, Kiss, Grand Funk Railroad, you name it, the list goes on and on. It's usually virtually impossible, and a lot of times there's even some bands out there that go under the name like Molly Hatchet. Nobody in the band was ever in the original band. So that happens sometimes. I think the main thing is a lot of people want to hear the music of those bands, and sometimes the only way to hear the music of those bands, besides putting it on the record or CD, it's to go and see an alternate version of the band, and that's sometimes the best it's going to be, or it's either that or it's nothing, And I think, like me, I've gone and seen Styx a number of times because my friend Ricky Phillips is the bass player, and Styx is probably better now than they ever were with the original lineup. That's just my opinion. I saw the original lineup many times in the 70s. The band now, they sing better and they play better. So, for me, I want to hear those songs of those bands, and as long as the bands do it justice and do it well, then I think that that's the most important thing.
Good answer. If anybody has a question,
You like how I'm justifying my position?
if anybody has a question, just come tap my shoulder. You got one? Here's one.
Hi, Eric. You can talk about this show that Paul missed. Maybe give us some of the songs that y'all played that you normally wouldn't have got a chance to play. And
Well, obviously that was kind of a fly by the seat of our pants situation. So basically, once Paul said he wasn't going to be able to perform, but he said that we should consider trying to play without him, which was very kind of a weird proposition. But then we thought about it, and we thought, okay, well, let's look through we basically sat in the dressing room, Gene and Tommy and I went through, I pulled out, because we have a bunch of CDs that we listened to stuff before as we're getting ready. So I pulled the CDs out and I started naming off songs, and Gene just made a set list, and we said, okay, what songs can you sing, Gene? What songs do you remember, Tommy, on guitar? Because some of those songs like Going Blind or She, we haven't played in who knows how long, and we didn't get to rehearsal. We just had to play it like what you saw was rehearsal basically.
did you get to sing any? Or
Yeah, I sang Black Diamond and Nothing to Lose, and then I sang all the Paul harmonies I sang all his harmony parts, the high parts. So whenever Gene was singing, whenever we go to the choruses, basically I was covering all Paul's parts, which I do most of the time anyways. Because a lot of times I'll double Paul's high harmonies, some of the songs, just so he can, if he doesn't, if he's tired or doesn't want to sing on certain songs, he knows that he can just like lay out in the choruses, since he sings and talks most of the night. It gives him a little bit of breather. So I knew all those parts anyways. And a couple songs we weren't sure about, so we went over some parts, like Tommy put on the CD and checked, like, oh, let me see if I remember this part of like Going Blind, or the She, was trying to remember some of the parts. We just in the dressing room, because we were already in makeup, so we just went through it real quickly, and then we went on, okay, let's go. We just went on and did it.
Awesome. Thank you.
But we ended up playing, I think, 96 minutes, which wasn't bad considering no Paul songs. And I just realized on the plane when I was flying there last night, I said, oh, we forgot to do God of Thunder. No, not God of Thunder, I mean War Machine. We could have done War Machine. We did 14 songs. We could have done 15, now that I realize. I don't know why I didn't think about it, because we were going through all the CDs, and I'm telling Gene, how about this, how about that, and, hey, we made it. I never want to do that again. I called Paul yesterday, before I flew here, and he said, he said he felt fine, and he said I could play tonight if I had to. So that was good to hear that. And so he asked me, he goes, how was it? And I said, well, I don't ever want to do that again. I said it was very weird. After the fact, once when you're in the heat of the moment, you just feel like sometimes it's like a child in distress. Sometimes you'd be surprised what you can do when somebody puts a gun to your head, or when you have to. And I was very calm when it went down, because our tour manager was all nervous, and I'm like, he's like, you're not even nervous. I go, well, it's the little things in life that we usually worry about and get crazy. It's when it's important things, is when you need to like be calm and deal with it. I said, and this is one of those situations, So we all were focused, and we went out and did it, and I hope the people that were there, they got to see a weird, unusual Kiss situation that'll never happen again. So in some ways I think it was the right thing to do, rather than, try to, if we would have gone home, it would have been a nightmare. Everyone would have been pissed. And we weren't sure we could reschedule the show. So they said, it's either do it now or don't do it at all. You were great, Eric. Thank you. Was anybody there besides you, Lou? I was there right about the rock. Okay, but I don't know if anyone was here. Some people, because people come from all over when Kiss plays sometimes, so you never know.
Okay, we got another question.
I was at the Sault Ste. Marie show.
Are you gonna ask me about Andrew French again?
No.
I'm just kidding.
No. I was at the Sault Ste. Marie show, and I was also at the Cadet show. And I noticed two things that happened at that show that I've seen at every other show but never happened at these two. One was there was no flying by Gene, and number two, there was no blood drilling by Gene for those two shows, but there was on the Wednesday night show. Is there a reason you might
Well,
know
the thing
that?
was, I think Gene thought, since we weren't going to fly, because we couldn't have all that stuff. So you got to remember, depending on the staging, sometimes we don't, like at these one-off dates, we don't bring all of our own staging. Parts of it we do, but the whole lighting truss, you have to have a special lighting rig for Gene to fly up into that whole setup. And we weren't going to have it for those shows. So Gene thought, well, if I'm not going to fly, then I shouldn't bother spitting blood. But then he realized it was really weird to not spit blood at all. So that's why he did it on Wednesday.
There's a lot of people looking at it, so.
Well, I think he realized too, but sometimes when you do unique situations, like Friday night, Gene, normally, if anyone that's seen Kiss knows Gene doesn't speak to the crowd except going, oh yeah, that's it. So he never talks, so for him to get up there and have to try to talk between songs, it was very weird, but don't forget, it was very awkward for Gene, because it's not something he's ever had to do. So he was just trying to do the best he could, they say making it up as he goes along, and that's kind of what he was doing. But I think all in all, I think he did a pretty good job, all things considered. The only mistake he made, I thought, was bringing those people up on stage to try to sing background vocals. And believe me, we realized it really quickly when it happened. That's why we didn't do it again.
Thank you.
We were trying to engage the fans and make them feel like, hey, you guys are part of this whole crisis and experience, so we wanted to, have them really be literally involved and be part of it. I think Keith mentioned there was like a very rather large Paul Stanley a guy dressed up as Paul Stanley that was rather large, and it really was kind of like weird looking seeing that guy up there. Because even I'm playing, I'm like, oh boy.
How long does it take to put on your makeup?
How long is it, who's asking me that? About as long as it takes you to give me one of your Rolex watches. No, I'm just kidding. Actually, it takes about 2 hours to get ready. I mean, what I found by putting on the makeup, you can't really, it's a certain procedure that you have to just do it methodically and you can't rush it. Although there's times where we're running behind those, kind of try to move us along, but you really kind of have to just take your time and do that proper steps and system. And I find that if you do that, it consistently looks the same. When you try to rush it, it ends up looking not very good and sloppy. Because this stuff is grease paint. It's literally like axle grease. And so it's not easy to work that stuff into your skin and move it around and, you know. And everybody has their own, what I have found, everybody, meaning Gene, Tommy, Paul, and myself, each one of us has our own little kind of system or method of how we do it. Like, I'm very like anal about it. I never make a mess with anything. I don't get any makeup on anything. Gene gets makeup everywhere. It'd be like if you let a 3-year-old have a paint set and go to town and it's all over them and all over everything. That's what Gene looks like. It's everywhere. It's so funny. He's like a little kid. And you look at him and he's got this, you know, he looks like this mean guy. And you look at him, but he looks like a kid that somebody spilled his cereal because it's all over the place. But like I said, everybody has their own little way they do it, and sometimes we'll ask each other, hey, what do you do with that, you know, to get like little makeup tips. I know it sounds like a bunch of women, but I guess it kind of is in those moments. But with the first time, I never knew what I was doing, so the very first time I ever put on makeup, Paul Stanley put it on me for the photo session, because I had never done it, and I had no idea. So he kind of did it and showed me how I'm supposed to do it, and from then on, I've done it on my own ever since.
We got a couple of questions that are makeup related. Let's run through these real quick. How do you do your hair for Kiss performances? Is it a dye?
How do I?
How do you do your hair? How do you get your hair dark? Is it a dye?
I dye it, yeah, but see, it's already fading. Yeah. I dyed it twice for these last 4 shows. I dyed it and then it fades really quickly. And my hair, because it's so light to begin with, doesn't hold the dye. It just won't take it it'll look good for that day, and then as soon as I wash it right away, every time I wash it, I'll see the black coming out in the shower.
Yeah.
So what I do is if it won't hold the dye, I take black hairspray and spray a little of that in to help keep it darker. But then it starts running, and when I sweat, it bleeds and runs all over my arms and stuff. It's kind of messy. Like the makeup's all over the place, all over the mic by the end of the show. I mean, have you ever seen Gene at the end of a show? He's a mess. He really is. He's like a disaster. But like I dyed my hair on Wednesday, and you see and 4 days later, it's already, I see the blonde streaks already coming in. I'd say in another 3 weeks, it'll be completely faded out.
Okay. How do you feel about wearing the makeup? Are you excited about doing that? Obviously, it's great to play
I don't
with
look
Kiss,
at it. I don't look at it about like whether I'm excited or not. I mean, I don't mind doing it. It's actually a lot of work. I mean, doing a Kiss show for the band, it's a long day. You know, you show up, let's say at 4:30 for a sound check. You do a sound check for half an hour, 45 minutes. Maybe you have the time to get a quick bite to eat, and then you got to go in and, you know, clean up. And usually you got to prepare your face, like either shave, if you didn't already, and use astringent. Make sure you clean your face real good so the makeup will go on easy. Otherwise, it's really hard to get on. And then you have to just take that time, like a couple hours, to get ready, to put the makeup on, do your hair, and you know, we have people that help us, wardrobe people. One of them usually helps us set up all the makeup tables. Everybody has like a big road case or trunk with lights, you know, like a Hollywood lights thing, and they put all the stuff on that. And then they have another girl that takes care of all the costumes, like cleaning them, repairing them, because the stuff gets torn and ripped up and stuff. They, you know, do daily maintenance on that. So, and then by the time we get ready, then we have to do a meet and greet, which sometimes can be anywhere from 20, 30 up to 130 people that have to sit there and go, how you doing, take pictures, and then you have to basically try to get ready real quick to go on stage. It's difficult for me because I really like to warm up and stretch before I play. Like when I do gigs with Alice Cooper, I usually go up a half an hour before the show and stretch and go. I have this whole set routine. I don't get to do that with Kiss because I'm having to get ready and then meet people and take pictures. So, and then you do the show for an hour and a half or so, and then another hour to clean up. So before you know it, you spend 7 or 8 hours of time from the time you arrive to the time you're finished.
How many sets of costumes do you guys have?
Usually 2, 3, or 4.
2 or 3 sets?
I have like 3 things, but I use the same one all the time. Mine's really dirty and beat up because, I don't know, it's just, it's not superstition, I just feel comfortable in that one. It just feels right and feels comfortable. And the other ones, when I've tried them on, it just feels weird to me. So I just like it more broken in.
Yeah. If you could choose your own character, what would it be? Like Eric was the fox, here as a
I
cat.
don't know.
You ever thought about it?
Well, everyone knows the answer to that. I mean, I've said it 100 times, but a hawk, but I don't know what it would look like. Although there was some guy, I think he was from St. Louis or Kansas City, he drew these figurines years ago in the 90s of myself and Bruce Kulick of what we would look like if we were a makeup character, and he did a character of a hawk, like the whole detailed thing, like boots and everything, and it was really, really good, and it looked cool. It was kind of a combination of some kind of like jeans type of boots with the big talons, and you know, or claws as they are known, more commonly known, and it was actually really good what this guy did. So I always thought that was kind of cool. Even the makeup design on the face was cool.
There was some sketches for Eric as a hawk. You probably
Chicken.
remember.
That was a chicken.
Chicken hawk.
It looked like a chicken. So you know those guys that stand out in front of a chicken place trying to get attention with a sandwich board, dressed in a chicken suit? That's what it looked like. So that's why. Now you know why they didn't use it.
Anybody else have any other makeup questions? We got another question here.
I have two questions. One, who's your favorite heavy metal band?
My favorite heavy metal band?
Yeah, or you know.
Black Sabbath.
Okay.
Definitely. I mean, if you're gonna go by heavy stuff,
Yeah.
I like Black Sabbath.
Yeah.
But my favorite bands, I can't just say with Queen, Zeppelin, and the Beatles are my favorite bands.
Now, do you have to say Beatles because that's the Kiss mantra?
No, I love Beatles.
Okay.
I mean, those guys wrote the best pop songs probably of all time. I don't think there's a bad Beatles song. I mean, some are obviously better than others, but to me, I like anything they've ever done. I never put on a Beatles song and go, oh, that stinks, or I don't like it. And there's not many bands you can say that about. I feel the same way about Queen. I love Queen. That's probably because that's my favorite guitar player next to Jimi Hendrix is Brian May. And I love Roger Taylor as a drummer. I mean, the whole band, they were just great.
Being a quality drummer that you are, I know Alice has done I don't know if you played on his recent album that he did not too long ago.
No.
But, okay, do you get tired of playing the same songs, not having your own music being played?
No. No, I mean, the one unique thing for me is that all the bands I played it with, or people I've worked with, just about every one of them, I was a fan of them. You know, a fan of their music, and a fan of them as, you know, like performers or artists. So I think that's kind of in a good way, a unique thing for me, because I genuinely was familiar with like Kiss, Alice Cooper. I worked with Brian May from Queen, and Gary Moore, all these bands that people I played with. I was fans of what they did, so I was familiar with them, and it's kind of, you know, it becomes part of your DNA in a way. It's part of it. It's in my, you know, it's ingrained in me. I was brought up on it and influenced by it. I think that's a good and important thing.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
A similar question. When you were a kid and you were first starting out, what percussionists really influenced you? What did you listen to as a kid that really got you into it? Maybe it was Queen. And what artists do you appreciate now? Listen to?
Well, growing, I remember. Well, I had an older sister, so anytime you have older brothers or sisters, you know, my sister was 4 years older than me, but 4 years in music is like a generation. And I remember her buying, you know, of course, like Beatles records, Chicago Transit Authority, which became Chicago. I had an uncle who used to play. He had Steppenwolf records, and then my sister, I remember her buying Led Zeppelin records and Deep Purple and all that stuff. And my neighbor would listen to Humble Pie. So, and Sly and the Family Stone, and my sister listened to a lot of Motown, Temptations, late '60s. So I was influenced by all that kind of stuff. But probably, I think for me, I remember when I moved to a different part of the town. I was probably about 12, in 6th grade, and I remember hearing Led Zeppelin, and then that kind of like really turned it for me. You know, so that was like 68, 69. And so that Zeppelin became like, you know, a big influence. That style of music, that real heavy blues-based hard rock. And so all those drummers of those bands, John Bonham, Ian Pace from Deep Purple, Cozy Powell, Carmine Appice, all those drummers of that era were the drummers that influenced me. And then of newer artists, I mean, I like Prince. I think he's a genius. I like everything he does. And I've seen him in concert a few times. The guy's like amazing. Great guitar player, great singer, writer, producer, you know, everything. He's just one of those genius guys. I like Stone, what do you call it? It's Queens of the Stone Age. I think they're cool because they have kind of a retro 70s kind of sound. You know, a lot of those bands are derivative of like a Black Sabbath type style, which I love Black Sabbath growing up. And I like Foo Fighters. They've been my favorite rock band over the last, 5 to 10 years is the Foo Fighters. I think Dave Grohl writes great songs, and the band are all great players, and to me, I totally dig what they do. You're welcome.
Eric, you've played with a lot of bands, obviously, and a lot of different types of music. What do you find is the most challenging form of music, like jazz, rock, whatever you try?
Well, I'm not a fusion or jazz drummer, but I would say that type of stuff is, especially fusion, more modern fusion jazz. I mean, even traditional jazz can be, because it's a more of a feel, stylistically, it can be kind of challenging, especially with some of that real fast up-tempo stuff of the old, like bebop and stuff. But probably, anytime you're playing odd time music and more progressive stuff, I mean, there's a lot of guys nowadays that play some stuff that's just ridiculous. I mean, aside from bands like Dream Theater, there's a band from Sweden called Meshuggah, which is like real heavy, but they play a lot of real odd, complicated time signature stuff. We did a festival about, a month ago with Alice Cooper over in Sweden and played with them, and those guys were like ridiculous.
Have you heard Peter's new album?
No.
I think it just came out this past week. Speaking of Peter, do you and Peter ever talk?
No.
Okay.
Hey, look, I got no problem with Peter, but it's like, I mean, the people have to realize I'm not, it's not that I don't like Peter, but I've never had a friendship or I've never had any kind of relationship at all with Peter, other than I've met him a few times when he came to like a Kiss Expo, or ran into him through the years once in a while, very seldom, like at a NAMM show or something. And then the most I probably ever talked to him was when we did MTV Unplugged in '95, which was 12 years ago. Because we obviously rehearsed together. I went to a few Kiss shows when they did the reunion tour, or was it the farewell tour? 2000. I think I was at a show in Dallas. But it's never. He's always been pleasant to me. He's always been, hey, how you doing? It's never really more than that. I mean, I probably know a lot of you more than I know Peter, to be quite honest.
What's the best and worst part about replacing Peter and Kiss?
I don't really think I don't think there is a best or worst. I don't get into the me against him or any of that kind of stuff. It's not about that. To me, it's I play drums for a living. I've been in and out of Kiss a number of times, as most of you know. And they asked me to play drums, and that's fine. And guess what? If it wasn't me, it'd be somebody else. So I'd rather have it be me than somebody else. I mean, that's the reality. A lot of people might say they don't like the idea of the whole makeup thing. To me, it's not an emotional issue whatsoever. I have no problem with it. It doesn't bother me at all. And in a perfect world, maybe things would be different, but we don't live in a perfect world. And at the end of the day, it's just a band. It's just music. And if somebody doesn't like it, then, don't go and don't buy it. Simple. That's what I do. If I don't like something, if I don't like McDonald's, guess what? I don't go to McDonald's. I don't buy it. I don't keep eating there and going, yeah, I hate this burger. I wish they would change it. And that's what some of the fans do with Kiss, and I don't get it. It's like, if you don't like it, you just move on. It's okay.
Okay, this is kind of a technical question for the drummers in the crowd, because there's a lot here today. What is your opinion of triggers, and do you use them?
Yeah, I do use triggers, sometimes.
Can you explain to people that don't know?
Well, triggers is basically, it's a little kind of electronic device that you mount on your drum, and then when you hit your drum, it'll trigger a electronic sampled sound, or anything. It could be a sound of a bell, it could be a siren, it could be a bomb, it could be anything that you want it to be. But I use it for sound reinforcement, basically for my monitor systems and for the band on stage, so that sounds more consistent and even and powerful every day, because every situation changes. You can go from playing outside in a giant open area like we did the other night, or you could be indoors in a small theater sometimes, and all those environments totally affect how things will sound.
Cool.
But sometimes, especially in certain situations when you do festivals, a lot of times the sound man doesn't get to do a sound check, barely gets to check the line to make sure everything's working. So knowing that he has these electronic drum sounds is a good security blanket to at least know that he's got a decent drum sound to start off. And most of the time, they'll gradually, once they get a few songs into the show, they'll start EQing or mixing the drum sound better, and then they can kind of mix the electronic stuff out. or sometimes they use a combination of both. A lot of bands have been doing it for years. I mean, I know, like Tommy Lee's been using it for years. I know Peter used it with Kiss. A lot of people, Metallica, you know.
Can you spot people that are using triggers like if you see a guy that's playing like real light, but it sounds like bam, bam?
Well, yeah, I mean,
you
you can have some of these little kids that are 4 years old can hit the drum and it's going to sound like it's Mr. Universe hitting it. And you can, depends on what sounds you assign to those triggers, you know. But it really does help for, like I said, it's sound reinforcement. And for some people, thank God they have triggers. You know, you don't need them. I mean, the last shows we just did with Kiss, I didn't use them. I mean, we have a great sound man. Lori Quigley is great. I mean, I can tell, even though I'm not out in the crowd hearing the PA system, I can tell because I can feel it of how it sounds, how powerful it sounds when I hit that bass drum. And I can feel by the air, because sound is just airwaves vibrating and moving air. You're just moving air, basically. So I can tell, you know, if it's really moving air and if it sounds big or not. And we have a great sound guy. I mean, Kiss has always had good sound guys, but Lori Quigley, the guy we've had the last like 5 years or whatever, that guy's killer. Really killer.
Anybody have any questions? Come on up. We got a few more here. This one is, do you play golf with Alice Cooper?
Wait, what?
Do you play golf with Alice Cooper?
No, not yet, but I did threaten to do it this year. I told Alice that I wanted to play golf, so he said he's going to get me some clubs. I'm actually going to try it, I think. I don't know how I'm going to do, but I told him I'm not getting up every day like you do. He goes out every day. But once or twice a week, I'm going to try, you know, because I'm not a morning person. I'm really not. And I realize to me, my job, more importantly than anything, is all about playing drums. So I got to make sure I have my energy rested to play. Because it really is so physical, and if I find that the more rest you get, then you feel great.
This one is about Paul. Do you think Paul's health, his health issue Friday might affect plans for an OA tour?
I can't answer that. I'm not a doctor. I think anyone's health situation can affect your life, period, and everything you do from that day forward. But Paul has always been a guy that takes very good care of himself. He eats well, sleeps well, lives well. He doesn't drink. He exercises. He does the right thing. He's not a lot. See, the problem with most people, they notice something doesn't feel right about them and they get scared, which is understandable. We're all human. But what they do is don't go to a doctor because they don't want they're worried that they're going to tell them something they don't want to hear. Instead of going to a doctor, be smart and get checked out. And if there is something wrong, attend to it. And then you can, a lot of times you wait too long, it's too late to remedy things. You know, but we always do it because of fear, you know.
Okay, we got a question from the audience.
Hey Eric, you've mentioned Black Sabbath a couple of times. How did you get involved with working with Tony Iommi? Being a big fan, that had to be a cool thing.
Yeah, well, when I first met him, I was playing with Lita Ford, and Lita Ford was engaged to him. So he saw me playing drums with her at some of the shows, and we were doing demos, and he started producing some of her demos at the time, and he even was playing on some of the demos. I don't even know, I might still have copies of some of the stuff with her singing, and he's playing guitar. I remember we did The Thrill Is Gone, that B.B. King song, and she sang and he played guitar on it. I think I have it somewhere, but it's pretty cool. Anyways, because we were working in the studio and he was producing some stuff, then one day Lita said, hey, Tony wants to know if you will play on some demos for him, and of course I said, yeah. And I started playing on demos, and then it became his solo record, which in turn became a Black Sabbath record, and then I ended up in the band.
Okay, here's another one. What is your favorite Sanford and Son episode?
My favorite Sanford Son? I don't know. I have the box set. I have the first 3 seasons on DVD, but I don't know what my favorite one is. They're all. I mean, I just like Red Fox because he's so funny. Just the things he says to everybody in the show. I mean, it was always around him, you know, all the interactions. So I just like the show in general.
Any current shows that you watch, you follow?
I don't watch any regular TV shows. I don't watch American Idol. None of that stuff.
Maybe HBO stuff? Sopranos?
I just watch, no, I don't watch any of that stuff. The only thing I watch is, I'll watch like TLC, you know, the Learning Channel, History Channel, Animal Planet. I like stuff that I'm going to learn something from. And, you know, that are educational or sports. I'm a big sports fanatic, or news. So basically I watch news and sports, and then, like I said, all those educational stuff.
Okay. This one is, do you ever or did you ever experience any backlash from Eric Carr fans when you came into the band?
Of course, you're Kiss fans. You know what I think a lot of it comes down to? A lot of people get very, attached emotionally to different eras of the band, because that's your era, that's your generation. Just like I loved, Deep Purple back in Machine Head era and Burn, or like Zeppelin and those first early records, or Kiss in the first early records, because I grew up with that. It was part of, it becomes the soundtrack to your life, music basically. And I respect the fact that some people feel that way. The fans were pretty cool to me right off the bat. I mean, I think they realized I was never trying to compete against Eric Carr or compete against Peter Criss. I mean, I'm very confident with my own identity and my own drumming abilities. It's not, at the end of the day, it's apples and oranges. We're all drummers, and if you like one more than the other, that's okay. I'm not trying to win everybody over. I know, like I said earlier, I know you're not going to make everybody happy. That's impossible. And I realized that a long time ago, and I really realized never try to compete with the four originals, because the bottom line is, that's what laid the foundation. That's the reason you're all here, that's the reason I'm here, is because of what those four original guys did. And I totally respect that, that hallowed ground, if you will, but at the same time, I know that things don't stay the same forever. I'm 49, I'm not 25 anymore, so I'm not going to be the same person I was when I was a kid or a young guy, And just like Kiss isn't going to be the same band that we all wish they were back when we were young kids. I remember going to see Kiss and being right on the stage and leaning like this in front of Ace and hitting his platform boots. I was like 17 years old, but I'm not that same kid anymore. I'm not the young rock fan that would go to shows. I don't even care about going to shows anymore, because I do it for a living, so I have a different perspective on everything.
Okay, we got another question from the audience.
Hi, Eric. I was fortunate enough to go to the official Kiss conventions back in '95.
Right.
And I was always wondering, ever since then, and you guys did the Unplugged on MTV, of course, I was always curious to my mind, did you, maybe Bruce too, did you ever have like the idea, like, yeah, they're going to get back together and do that?
No, I never did. Because I never felt threatened. I know Bruce kind of said, he told me that he always felt bad, and that Eric Carr always said that and felt bad. I never felt that, because to me, it didn't seem like, especially after we did, no offense to anybody, but when we did rehearsals for MTV Unplugged, my opinion after that was like, there's no way they can do a reunion. But mind you, you're looking at purely from just a musicianship point of view, which is really not really the right way to look at it always, because sometimes it's really more, especially for you fans that are like the original band, it's about a spirit and a vibe, and it's really not about all that stuff. And I respect it, and I get that. But at that time, I was like, oh, there's no way they're going to do this. And when it happened, I was kind of surprised, I'll be honest.
Well, if you guys ever did take the makeup back off, I personally wouldn't mind a Revenge era lineup again.
Looks like you're by yourself. Oh, you got two.
Here's another question about, it's sort of about touring. Do you think Kiss would you guys ever come up with a new set of costumes that we haven't seen before? Because,
one thing I've learned with Kiss, never say never about anything. And I believe that, because just like I didn't think they'd ever do a reunion tour. I didn't think they would do that. I didn't think I'd ever end up in the band playing with makeup. I wouldn't have thought that. So anything's possible, I think a lot of times, sometimes you put your finger up to the air to see which way the wind's blowing, so you can point your ship in that direction. And I think, all bands do that, because at the end of the day, it is a business. I mean, if you want to still keep doing what you do, you got to, think along those lines definitely at some point. And Gene and Paul have been very good. They don't always make the right decisions. Nobody does. They're human too. We all sometimes make the wrong choices or not the best choices. But I think they've done pretty good though. I think they got a pretty high batting average for the most part. Better than most, that's for sure. They've been pretty savvy about a lot of things. But never say never. I mean, people say, oh, you think they'd ever take the makeup off and play? I say probably not. But then again, I remember a few years ago, Paul saying, oh, I don't ever want to tour on a bus again, I'm never doing that, no way. Well, guess what? He went out on a solo tour, and he toured on a bus. So, it happens. So anything's possible. I mean, I would never be surprised if the 4 original guys still went out and did more shows. Do I think it's probably going to happen? Probably less likely that will happen than would happen, but I wouldn't be surprised if it did. You know? Because it happened before. See, I know better now.
Yeah, we've had the first farewell tour already, right?
Yeah.
First.
No, I did the end of the first one.
Do you ever write any songs yourself?
No, I've come up with parts and ideas at times through the years, but I'm not a songwriter. I wish I was.
Anybody have any questions?
Because that's where the money is.
We got a question from the audience. The winner of our makeup contest, or our lookalike contest.
Well, I can see why you picked her.
For non-makeup photo shoots, who picks the clothing? Does the band or is a stylist provided, and if so, by who?
For non-makeup?
Yeah, photo shoots, like for example, Carnival Souls or Revenge.
Well, sometimes I think it was more so in the 80s where people were kind of hiring all these clothes makers, and then everybody started looking like cookie cutters of each other, you know? Everybody looked like Bon Jovi, or Bon Jovi looked like Kiss, and they looked like Scorpions, and because everybody was having their clothes made by like Ray Brown, who was making it for Judas Priest and Bon Jovi and Alice Cooper and Kiss and Dokken and Motley Crue, you know? And you even kind of still have that going on now. Like with Alice Cooper, we all got new clothes this year. And the guy that made Alice and the band's clothes, he made clothes for Motley Crue on their last tour, and he also made clothes for Aerosmith. So,
is it the bands that choose it, or is it the record label?
no, the bands do, but sometimes it's referral. Like for example, with Alice, there's the bass player that plays in Rob Zombie. His name is Matt, but he goes by Piggy D. He's got a clothes company called Black Victory. And he makes clothes, or he basically takes your old clothes and like beats them up and stains them and does all this stuff to it. And it looks really cool. And so he made a bunch of clothes for Alice and the band. And then there was another guy, this company called Junkers with a J. He made clothes for Motley Crue and Aerosmith, and he made some of Alice and some of our stuff. And sometimes it just, it's word of mouth. These guys live in LA and they start doing it on their own, like as like hobbyists, I mean, that's usually the way people start that do our clothes designers. Like my friend Gilby Clark, his wife, used to always wear these really low-cut hip hugger pants. She used to always make them for herself. And then she started making them and selling them out of her garage to little boutiques in LA. And before you know it, it blew up in Nordstrom, and all these high-end stores started selling them. Any of you heard of Frankie B jeans? And that's her company. And now she's a multi-millionaire. And I remember when they first started, she was making them just in the garage. She'd have a couple cardboard boxes, and they started off with nothing, and it just blew up. And she's, driving all these killer cars and live in this killer house, and she's the main breadwinner now, big time. I mean, I got to give her props because I saw her do it from nothing. So it happens. People can do it. You just got to go out and work it and just get the stuff into the right people's, like with Daniela, that's her name, Daniela Clark. She started wearing it. People would always come and say, "Oh, where'd you get those pants?" And then she started, making them for Britney Spears, and then Jennifer Lopez wore this jumpsuit on a cover of a magazine. And before you know it, all these celebrities were wearing her stuff, and bingo, that's all it takes.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Here's another one.
Do you go by the name Patrice when you wear that costume? You should. Just kidding.
When you filled in for Peter, did you have to use his costume or did you get another one?
When I filled in for Peter?
Yeah, during the farewell.
Okay, what about now?
Well,
what am I doing now? Am I filling in still, I guess? I'm keeping the seat warm, I guess, right? Okay. When people use the word musical chairs, I tell people it really is musical chairs, musical drum chairs, something, because I've been in and out. No, they made my own costumes.
And what's your funniest moment ever backstage with the band?
The funniest moment? Wow. There's been some funny ones, I gotta say. I mean, I usually always go up to Gene. I love to bother Gene. So I'm always, and Gene, some people have had run-ins with Gene where he'll yell at you or say, be mean or try to scold people. But he's never says anything. Gene is always very patient with me. And I'll act like I'm a little fly buzzing around his head, just bugging him constantly. And he just sits there and takes it. But I usually go up, I always like to dance for him before the show. When we're getting on makeup, I always go up to him and start like a stripper. I'll start humping his leg, or and one time I climbed on his shoulders and was humping his head. in the dressing room because I'm a pretty hyper person, and sometimes I just get really amped up before the show, like really crazy. And I'll be like talking nonstop and jumping around the room, and so I just jumped up on his shoulders and started humping on his head, and he was just the expression on his face was priceless. He just lost it. He just couldn't stop laughing.
Was that wet makeup?
Pardon me?
Was that wet makeup?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's my phone. Hold on. Let's keep Ruth. Yes? What? How come it's not coming up on speakerphone? Hello? It's not working. It ended. I lost the signal.
Hey Eric, I don't know if you addressed this question. It's since you have been playing in the Kiss makeup, as a drummer myself, what is it like when you start perspiring in that makeup? Do you feel like do you have a chance to wipe yourself down?
You can't. No, you can't. Here's the thing is, once you put the makeup on, you can't touch your face. Because if you do, it'll smear and you get all of your hands. So basically you put, it's grease paint. Every time you put the color on, you take powder and you pack it into your face. And that takes it so the shine so it doesn't look all greasy. I mean, a lot of times I'll see fans get dressed up at these expos and they don't realize their face is greasy. It looks like like a pizza. And they don't realize that if they would just put powder on, even baby powder, and pack it in with a sponge and then dust the excess off, it'll look nice and clean and white, and then they won't perspire as much, you'll sweat through it. But what I do is I have some washcloths that are wet, rolled into a round like cylinder ball, so I can just blot my eyes. You can't rub your face, you can just basically touch. And if they're wet, they won't, smear the makeup. Sure. And if you get, you can't blow your nose, so you have to just take Q-tips and stick them inside the nose. And it's not so easy, It's a whole new, and if your face starts itching, you just got to sit there and just deal with it.
Really?
You can't touch it.
Sure.
So once you're good to go, you got to just wait till you're done. But I find once you sweat, you actually sweat through it. You don't perspire as much because you're blocking all your pores.
And you have a lot of fans on you. Is it pretty cool up there for you overall when you're on the Kiss?
No, I don't have a lot of fans on me. Sometimes depending on if we're playing outdoors and it's hot, like the other day it was 103. That gig that Paul didn't play, it was 103 that day. So, but the thing for me is the smoke, all the pyro and the bombs. Like when the drum riser goes up, those sparkler things are spinning. Those things are sparkling all over me and burning me. And a lot of times I'm sitting there like choking. I try to hold my breath, but you can't hold it that long. And then you start breathing, and it's like a fire-breathing dragon. I'll see smoke just going, pouring out of my breath. And I try to, we try to get an angle of the fans to try to blow it away from me as best as we can. But once you're up in that light truss, smoke rises, and I'm up in there just like choking. It's horrible. And a lot of times you lose your voice. Sometimes the next day I wake up and I'm like, and I can't sing. It ruins your voice. It's really dangerous sometimes, but it's part of showbiz. I like it. The more like Gene, I'm with Gene. Yeah. They used to have a joke back in the old days where the pyro guy used to have a thing. He used to say, less smoke on one arm, more pyro. And one would say G and one would say P, because Paul would always say, less smoke, I can't stand the smoke because of my voice. And Gene was like, blow it up. I love more bombs. He wants bombs. If it was up to Gene, we'd have bombs on every song. I'm serious, he loves it. Fire bombs, he loves that stuff. I'm with him. Because when I was a kid, I loved fireworks, firecrackers. Oh, I was crazy about them.
You mentioned about health. Being with Kiss, have you noticed anything? I think, everyone's getting a little older now. No diss. I'm older too. But seeing Gene.
Hey, I'll be 50 next year. I'm
you guys continue to have so much energy up there. Is it just part of this health? Seeing Gene.
Gene made a deal with the devil back in '73, I think, and then that was it. So we're all in.
Wow.
Not just kidding. No, it is. It is true. I've made this observation over the last few years. I remember when I first started off, I was always the baby in the band, the young guy in the band, the little Eric, and all this. Like with Alice Cooper, next to Alice, I'm the oldest guy in the band.
So Ryman,
So I've always been around younger people, and being around younger people does keep you young. That's why people that have kids, sometimes people have kids at a later age. It's great because it keeps you young. Not just because you have to chase after them, but literally because that energy and spirit of youth is something that's just remarkable. And you know, music is such a different kind of lifestyle. I don't go to a regular 9-to-5 job. I did that when I was younger, so I know what it's like.
Sure.
And I can see why it's can age people. I look at a lot of my friends that I grew up with and went to school with. I don't look like them at all. It's weird for me.
Yeah.
You know, I'll even say to my mom, like, wow, I ran into so-and-so, and you know,
Yeah.
they seem like they're like 20 years older than me now.
Yeah. I can't believe you're 49. You look 39.
Well, thank you. I'm holding up all right? For an old man. Yeah, like Dick Clark, I have Dick Clark disease. I hope. We can only wish it. Okay.
Okay, the mic's open. Anybody? Oh, here we go.
Okay. When you go back home when you're not touring, and you
I'm
go
never
like,
home.
well, when you do go back home, we're in California.
Yeah.
When you go to grocery stores, gas stations, wherever you go, do you get bombarded, or do they show you respect knowing who you are?
I don't. People hardly ever notice it. I mean, I live in LA where there's like, you know, gazillion millions of people. I mean, every once in a while, I run into the celebrities all the time. Like we played last Wednesday, and we were staying at a hotel down in Orange County, like near San Diego. And I was eating breakfast, and I saw Magic Johnson sitting a few tables away. And I was with Tommy Thayer and a couple of the guys, you know, the tour manager, Hab and Dean. And I didn't say nothing because they didn't recognize him. I recognized him. I thought, oh, that looks like Magic and his wife Cookie. Well, then when I went back to my room to go check out, he got out of the elevator, and I'm like, hey, how you doing? And it was him. So, but I wasn't sure earlier in the morning. But so you run into people like that. I didn't sit there and go, oh my God, Magic, can I have your autograph? And, you know, I just said, oh, hi, how you doing? He goes, hey, how you doing? And you know, just like I would say hi to you if I saw you in the street. And I find if you treat people just regular, because everybody is just regular people at the end of the day, that's really the right thing to do and the best thing to do. But I've many times, so I've lived in LA for 23 years. I've many times sat in restaurants and had, you know, like Lionel Richie or Clint Eastwood sitting in the other table across there. It doesn't happen every day, but it happens pretty often when you live there that many years. And after a while, you start going, oh, they live here too. Oh, they eat at regular restaurants. They go to McDonald's. They go to Starbucks. And you know, once in a while, I'll go to like Starbucks, and somebody will come up to me and say, "Oh, you Eric Singer?" I'm like, "Yeah." Or, oh, and, you know, and they'll be real nice and cool, but I don't get recognized that much. Gene does, obviously. Well, because of that TV show. Paul and Gene, I notice wherever we go, Gene and Paul always get recognized. Like if I go to a restaurant with Paul, he gets recognized all the time. But ever since Family Jewels, Gene really gets recognized. And his kids were at the show the other night, and everyone said when they were walking through the crowd, everyone was like standing up and cheering and clapping and taking pictures of him. So even his kids now are famous. And Sophie's 15 years old. You know, she's probably more recognizable than me, I would imagine. Absolutely. TV does a lot, is a totally different kind of fame than being in a band. Absolutely.
Speaking of the TV show, one of the things that I've been most surprised about, and I think a lot of people that I've talked to, is Gene's kids seem to be really well-rounded, grounded kids, and I think
totally.
A lot of people have been surprised by that. How well do you know him?
Well, I've known Nick since he was like 3, and Sophie since she was born, and Evan, Paul's kid, since he was born. Those kids, all 3 of them, unbelievable. Like Paul's kid is the nicest kid. He's so mellow. He's so polite. Everything he does is like, please, thank you. If you do something for him, he'll like, oh wow, thanks very much. He's just so gracious, a cool kid, and he actually is a really good guitar player. We jammed with him at rehearsal a couple weeks ago because I missed the first rehearsal as Keith LaRue pointed out because I didn't make my flight. And the day I came in, Evan was there, and Paul goes, "Oh, you got to hear Evan play. Come up and jam with us." So we jammed, and the next day we jammed with Gene as well with him. And he's only 13, but the kid can play. I mean, he was playing like Eric Clapton licks and stuff. And I was very impressed because he's not, instead of trying to be like, you know, Steve Vai or Yngwie Malmsteen or something, trying to play 1,000,000 miles an hour and all this tapping stuff. He's playing more like all cool stuff like that we all grew up on. His dad and you know like Eric Clapton and that kind of stuff. So I think in a few more years he's going to be really good because he can definitely, he's got the right, you can tell he's got the right influences and stuff.
It'd be cool if he and Nick got together and did a band.
I don't think Nick wants to be in a band, I don't think.
Yeah,
but I can see Evan, he loves guitar and he's into it totally.
Nick could be
but Gene's kids, they're super cool. They are totally unassuming, real polite. I mean, I rode with from the first gig to the second gig the other day, and I rode with Gene and his kids in the van, and they're just like regular. I mean, they're a lot nicer than I was as a kid. Me and my friends, we were terrors. We were bad. We were really bad. We did bad things. I think back now, I'm like, we'd be in jail today by today's standards. Because the level of what kids do now is so bad. We were like the worst of the kids back in my generation. We'd be in jail. Absolutely. Well, some of my friends they're either dead or in jail now. A lot of the kids I grew up. My two best friends from junior high and high school are both dead from drugs. And so I'm thankful that I've survived all that whole era and that whole thing. And somehow came out okay, I think.
We think.
Kind of. Yeah. Well, you know what it is? A lot has to do with it. I know kids don't like to hear, but my dad put the fear of God in me when I was a kid. I used to always worry, if I got in trouble, oh my God, what is my dad going to say? I did not want to hear the wrath of my dad. And I know it's maybe not a good thing to grow up being afraid of your dad, but it is a good thing to grow up being afraid of dad, because it keeps you out of trouble.
Keeps you respectful.
It did for me. It worked for me.
Do you think, and there's probably no way for you to know this, that you or Paul might appear in the Family Jewels show? Tommy's been in there.
I don't know. What's up?
I said Paul. Yeah.
Oh, Paul will be in there. I'm sure he's looking. He'll be in every episode. Not Paul. That's not Paul's thing. Reality TV. He doesn't. And some people I can be like Alice Cooper's been asked to do it. He doesn't want to do it either. They want to do his family. He's like, that's a different animal. Gene loves attention and celebrity, so for him it's natural. I was supposed to be in the episode when we were filming the other night, Friday, but because of what ensued and happened with Paul, that shit got thrown out the window. We didn't even think about that. We were more worried about Paul, and then two, once Paul said, hey, you guys should play, then we're like, okay, can we? And then we were just focused on that. So, because I kept teasing Gene, how come I'm not in the show? And so then that day I was going to be in the episode because his dressing room was connected right to it, and like I said, it just didn't happen. Maybe another time.
Do you know what kind of deal he's got as far as how many seasons or anything?
I have no idea.
Okay.
He did tell me that they wanted to extend a certain amount of episodes, but Gene could only commit to a certain amount based on. Because, like he said, if Kiss wants to plan on touring, he can't commit too far ahead because then once you make that commitment, you sign up, then you have to do it. And that he really wants to go on tour at some point if they can, if the ducks all line up. So he only committed to, I guess, a certain amount of time up through maybe the end of this year or beginning. I don't know, because all that stuff's filmed way ahead of time on lead time. What they do now, you might not see for 6 months.
Okay, here we got a question from the audience.
Hey, Eric.
Hey.
I know you really can't speak for Gene and Paul, but you're around them quite a bit. How much, or can you tell if it's really bothered them that the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame has ignored them?
I don't think well, I'm not going to say they don't care, because anybody that's in the business this long has had that kind of a career, like look at Alice Cooper. That's ridiculous that he's not in it. He's the guy that started all that stuff with makeup and theatrical type stuff. And there was a time when he was the biggest act in rock. How can you put people like Patti Smith or the Ramones in before a band like Kiss or Alice Cooper? So I personally think the whole thing's a joke. And obviously VH1 felt the same way, and that's why they said, there's not only going to be, these guys aren't going to decide what rock and roll and a Hall of Fame thing's all about and celebrating and honoring bands. We're going to do it because we're more in touch. I think they're more in touch with what most general people and fans think about our genre of music. And that's why they started doing the VH1 honors thing. So, hey, maybe it'll happen one day, and if it does, cool. And if it doesn't, it's not going to affect my life one way or the other. It's not going to make me sleep better. I think the thing's a joke, though. Go sometime and look at some of the people that are inducted, and you will be shocked. You will not believe, no disrespect to anybody, but there's some bands that are in there, I'm like, how'd they get in here before all these other bands?
Who takes precedence over, Alice or Kiss? Is there, for time and...
Who takes precedence? For me?
Yeah, for you.
Well, there isn't really no one taking precedence. Here's the thing is, obviously Kiss hasn't been touring for the last few years, so I've been playing with Alice because I got to work and I want to make a living, and I love playing. I like being out touring and doing all that's what I do. it's part of me, and I need to do it. You know, it's not just a financial thing. It's emotionally and spiritually something I need to do. But obviously, Alice realizes that Kiss is a very unique situation where I'm the guy that wears that costume, wears the makeup, and does that thing. So Alice has always been very, very cool and helpful about, you know, making concession for me to go and play when I need to. You know, and somebody fills in for me.
So you're going to do like a world tour with Kiss? What does Alice do?
You cross that bridge when you get to it. I mean, look, Alice knows I love playing with him, but at the same time, he knows that, you know, if Kiss is going to do a full tour, and it, you know, like in 2004, I didn't do Alice's tour, so he got another drummer. But then I came back. I mean, I played more with Alice than with anybody in my whole career, by far. So I started playing with him in 1990. So, but Alice also didn't tour for a few years there either. So he realizes, what do I do if he doesn't tour? You know, so then he understands that. It's a business, you know. And Alice is a solo artist rather than a band. So he realizes it's a lot easier for him to get somebody to come in and play drums than for the other way around. What's up, Keith? You're smiling at me.
Barry was going to cut the sound off.
You cut the sound off? Barry, how much do you like your fingers? Should we wrap it up, Keith?
Well, whatever.
We got one more here.
Okay.
Hello again, Eric.
Hi.
Just a couple of questions. When I did watch the show on the 20th, and things like when the fire columns went up, and I felt the heat from 19 rows back, how was it for you? Like, I felt it really
What do you
good.
think? Well, put it this way, I worry about it with all that hairspray in my hair.
Yeah, okay. So you feel the heat point, and I see fans on you all the time.
Oh yeah, I worry. Believe me, I like I said, when those spark things go up, those spark things, I watch my eyes because they spark and hit my face and my arms.
Wow.
I mean, they're just little like stingers. It's like little, like somebody poking you with a pin or, you know, pinching you or something.
Right.
But it still doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
Because I can't go anywhere.
Right.
So like most people, if they saw those sparks, they'd run away, right? Where am I going to run? Off the riser and fall from 30 or 40 feet? Well, how about the other day, Keith? We were at Sault Ste. Marie, and we just finished sound check, and somebody pushes the button for the drums that go up, and only the two front cranes went up, and the whole drum riser went backwards, and my drums fell over while I was on the riser.
Wow. So also,
I mean, shit happens.
When the bombs go off, now because they go off, I guess, around the same time to the song, do you guys get startled by those when they go off? Well, you're used to that now.
My ears don't like it because, well, here's the thing is, the bombs are like underneath me, and I'm wearing in-ear monitors, like little in-ear things. But all the microphones, everything that's amplified on stage is coming through there, loud.
So the bombs.
So the bombs getting amplified.
Wow.
So I hear it they're underneath me, back by me, and they're being microphone amplified.
Yeah. Wow.
So they're probably 5 times as loud as what you're hearing.
Yeah.
Believe me, every time they go off, I'm like, damn it! You know, because I can do it. Sometimes I don't know if any of you have watched. Sometimes you'll see me joke around with the pyro guy. I'll go like this, like I'm looking at my watch because his timing isn't always so great. And I'll sit there, like I'll look over and I'll just go, because sometimes he'll look at me, I'll go like during the show, like, how am I doing? I'll go. So, and Gene really goes. I mean, I do it as a joke with the guy because he's a nice guy, but Gene goes crazy because the pyro and the bombs is a big thing for Gene. Like I said, he wants it on every song. If that guy messes up, Gene will go over there and start screaming at the guy. Now, Paul told me a story back in the 70s because Gene, he's crazy when he's in makeup. This is no exaggeration. Everyone thinks we're like just embellishing and trying to trump it up. Gene's crazy when he's in makeup on stage. He gets into character. He becomes the demon, and he goes nuts when something doesn't go right. You don't want him mad at you when he's like that. I would not. And Gene's very strong. I think if he grabbed hold of you, he'd break your neck because he's very imposing. And they had some pyro guy in the 70s. It was an older guy at the time, I think like in the 60s or almost 70. And I guess this guy messed up or something. And Gene went over and started choking the guy. And Paul said, he told the guy, Gene, that guy's an old man. You can't be doing that stuff. And Gene didn't even realize, he didn't even remember that he had done it. Because he was so crazy in the heat of moment. You know? Adrenaline's an amazing thing. When your adrenaline kicks in and you're all psyched up, it gives you, like, you can be sore and be painful or be sick, and you can get through a show and play really great because the human body's pretty amazing. Well, Gene goes nuts and he doesn't know what he's doing sometimes.
Well, thank you very much, Eric. And you guys did play awesome on the 20th. I just loved it. And
which one was that?
Sault Ste. Marie. Yes.
Okay. It was better the next night.
It was better.
Yeah, because there was about 35,000 people. It was crazy.
Louder, louder. Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah.
That was really good. I was impressed with that. I mean, I have to say, after doing these shows we did, I said to Doc McGee and even Gene and Paul, I said, I think people want to see Kiss again. You know, sometimes you got to go away to be missed. You know, absence makes the heart grow fonder, as the old saying goes. But those shows proved to me they had great crowds. I was actually pleasantly surprised.
That's good because those were great shows, and we do need Kiss, and we need another tour.
I hope
Thank you very much, Eric.
Thank you.
Let's hear it for Eric Singer.
Thanks, everybody.
I love you, Eric.
He's like, turn off the sound.
I wasn't going to do it. I wasn't.
Look. You're down to look how much time I had left.
Down to the wire.
I kept looking at it, looking at it, looking at it.